Hello everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to another project for Trinity Stamps. Today I'm going to be using a stamp set called Shoe Sprites from the autumn release. It is super adorable with these two little characters and the shoe. I do have the coordinating dies. If you purchase them, they'll come separately. I just like to tuck them in the back of my stamp sets so I know which ones I have the coordinating dies for and which ones I don't. I'm bringing in a couple of older stamp sets, but still super cute. I'm using the candy jar and the Sweeter Than stamp sets to complete my card today. We're going to be creating a Slimline card, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the process of making the card, but I just wanted to show you how I condition my new stamps. I don't think I've shown this in a video, and I know it can be super helpful. There's various ways to do this. My preferred method is to use a white eraser, and I just go ahead and I take that eraser over the entire image. I'll also do this with my sentiments, and it just creates a little bit of grit or texture for that ink to hold onto when it's a new stamp. So once I do that, I can go ahead and ink up my stamps. I'm using the Fawn Jet Black ink. I will be doing some Copic coloring today. We'll also be doing some paper piecing, which I haven't done in a while, so that was super fun. But you can see here, even though this is the first time I'm stamping, I'm getting a fairly good impression because I've conditioned the stamp. So I can go ahead and stamp it a second time, and then I have the perfect crispness of black lines that I want for my images. So for the coloring today, I'm just going to be showing you how I colored up the two little characters here and the house. I did go ahead and color a number of the little candies. I did that off screen and then cut them out either with the coordinating dies or my brother Scan and Cut. So for our little guy here, I decided to go with a medium skin tone color. So I'm using the E23, E13, and E11. And for our little girl, I decided to go for a fair skin tone color. So I'm using E11, E00, and E000. I like to have variations in skin colors if there's more than one little people images on my cards. I just think it's fun and it's a good way to practice your skin tones. I did bring in the R20 for the cheeks just to give them some rosiness and add a little bit of extra to make them sort of come alive. So for the hair, I'm going to use the same color combinations for both of our little people here. So I'm using E49, E79, and E59. I'm doing some very simple hair coloring here, just simply laying down the color. I have my darkest shadows to the bottom of their hairline, and then I'm moving up with my mid-tone, and then I'll have the highlight to the top of their heads. I just wanted to keep a very kind of consistent color palette throughout the card. For my little guy's outfit here, I'm using the G02, G00, and G quadruple 0. At first I thought I was just going to color his little jacket in this color, and then I decided to go ahead and do the same color palette for his pants as well. I'm going to use some pinks for the little girl's dress. I'm using RV25, RV13, and RV21. So whenever I lay out the marker caps, I always have the darkest color to the top, then move through my mid-tone and my lightest color on the bottom, just so that it makes it easier if you want to use the same color combinations. I'm going to bring in some C markers here to do their little shoes and also his belt. I did go back and color his belt a little bit darker later on off screen, but that was kind of the color combination I chose for the first layer of coloring. I'm going to use the same markers for the roof of our little shoe house here, which is so cute. So I'm adding this shading underneath each of the shingles because they're laying on top of each other. There would be a shadow underneath each of the shingles, and then I'm going to go ahead and add some shadows to either side of the roof here. just bringing back in that C7 marker to darken up the sides. And you can see how that really gives definition between the shingles themselves and the side of the house. So it gives nice shading. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the darker marker again and then move through my midtones here just to darken up that roof a little bit more. So I decided that I wanted to have lots of white on our shoe here. So I'm bringing in the C3, the C1, and then the colorless blender. And I'm going to add some little bit of shading here so that my white has some depth and some shadows, but it will remain mostly white. So I'm doing the sole of the shoe and then the little top of the shoe itself as well here. At this point, I knew that I was going to do some paper piecing. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to color all of the little pieces. So I just typically go ahead and color what I know I want something to be, and then as I see that kind of come to life, then I'll choose more colors as I move through the coloring process. So I'm going to add some detail here using my black glaze pen on their buttons and their eyes. And now I'm going to move on to the paper piecing. So I'm using this fun little candy piece of pattern paper from the Doodlebug So Punny 6x6 paper pad. This came out a couple years, but I thought it was perfect for this card. I'm going to use my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink here. I don't need to paper piece the roof, so I'm just going to add the ink where I know I want it. I'll stamp that out a couple times. I'm using the black onyx ink because it will give me a really dark line, and I want the lines to be able to stand out from that busy pattern paper. So once I get that done, I'm also going to stamp out the doors and the windows again. I decided that I wanted to have them white, so I will go ahead and add some shadows to the window and the door and the steps there with my cool gray markers off screen, and then I will fussy cut everything out. So here's everything cut. I wanted to add some of that black glaze pen to the stitching detail on the shoe, and then I can go ahead and I can add my pattern paper here to the shoe. So I was really inspired to make this card by a television show that I've been watching. We've been watching the Once Upon a Time show on Netflix, and it's all about fairy tales, and I'm absolutely loving it. And there was recently an episode on Hansel and Gretel. So I thought it would be super fun to create a candy themed card with the house and the two little characters because they reminded me of Hansel and Gretel. So that's where I got the inspiration for this card. You never know when something is going to inspire you. So with the white pieces of cardstock that I cut the windows and door out of, I just used my Memento black marker to outline that. That'll really help streamline the edges of those pieces so that it hides any of the imperfections with the fussy cutting. I went ahead and popped up the windows and that adorable little envelope there that's like their little mailbox, which is really cute. And I decided to just adhere the door and the steps down straight to the little shoe itself with some liquid adhesive. So I wanted there to be various levels of dimension on this card. Decided that I was going to color the sides of the windows and the doors with my black glaze pen. I thought maybe this could give the look of black licorice, so that's how I decided to go ahead with the black glaze pen. And I love how it gives that shiny black look and just really allows those images to pop off of the shoe itself. So I went ahead and created my background. I just used cloudy border stencil from MFT with some Tumbled glass Distress Oxide, and then for the grass I used some Twisted Citron Distress Oxide, and I love the pop of green that gives. It just gives a nice bright background for our little scene card here. I did get some of that Twisted Citron ink on the area of the clouds, so I'm just going to work on placing my candies so you can't see those little imperfections. So I'm going to start creating my scene here, and I'm playing around with placement. I didn't like where I had the lollipop in her hand the first time, so I'm just going to go ahead and change that up. I will add some foam dimension to some of the images. I have my little girl and little boy here. I guess my Hansel and Gretel popped up on some foam tape, and other pieces I will just adhere straight down to the card panel itself. So I did leave in the majority of creating this scene. There's lots of candies on this card, but I wanted to show you the process of putting together a scene like this. Now, as I mentioned, I am making a slimline card. Now, these are longer rectangular cards. I typically cut my card bases for a slimline card to 4 inches by 9 inches just to make it easier in terms of cutting my panels. This will fit nicely into a business-sized envelope, and just really fun to be able to have that extra length to create a robust scene card. So you can see here I'm kind of laying down the candies and just trying to balance out the colors themselves and where the candies, I guess, themselves are placed. So sometimes people can be really intimidated by creating scene cards, but I just wanted to show you that it just takes a lot of fiddling, and so that's why I didn't edit that piece out, because I just wanted to see that it's not always just natural to know exactly where to place everything and how to get balance in terms of your colors, size, and all those kinds of things. So I did want to balance out the card by having 3 of the kind of swirl lollipops, one to the left, one sort of centered, and then one to the right hand side, and that will help with balancing out the height of the elements on the card. And then I can go ahead and fill in my space with the smaller ones. Just having fun, kind of getting lost in the entire process of creating this card. You can see there originally I had a pink gummy bear beside our little girl here, and then decided that was too much pink, so I switched that out for a purple. And then making sure there's at least one of the colors on each kind of cluster of candies. So I considered the girl one cluster, the boy one cluster, and then the cluster that I have to the left of the card. So I just want to make sure as much as possible I have a pink and a teal and a mint and a purple and a yellow in each of those clusters. That will help with having the eye just kind of move across the card so that there isn't really one area of focus for this card, that it's nicely balanced and just really pleasing to the eye. I'm going to finish off here by adding a few more of the candies and the lollipops, and then I will pretty much be done. I am going to add some candies underneath the shoe, sort of to the right hand side and the left hand side of the shoe. Again, just trying to balance that up. I wanted to fill in as much of the green space there for the grass so that it wasn't a dominant feature of the card. So here I'm just using a little pink gummy and a yellow candy, and I'm going to add this aqua color as well. And then I will balance that out to the left hand side with a couple of the candies. I had colored up so much of the candies, and I just wanted to get as many on as possible. It was super fun to create this scene and kind of recreate my own version of a Hansel and Gretel with the candy house and all the little candies around them. So now I'm just going to add some detail here with my white gel pen, only adding a few highlights to the images, mostly just the candies. I didn't add any highlights to Hansel and Gretel at all. I'm going to add a little bit to the side of the roof, but other than that, keeping that fairly simple. I did add 3 little dots on each side of their cheeks, and the card is complete. So I hope you've enjoyed creating this slimline card today using newer products mixed with old products. It's one of my favorite things to do, so I get more use out of my stamps. having fun doing some coloring and some paper piecing. Thanks so much for joining me today. I have a couple more videos here for you. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Have a fantastic day, everyone, and I hope you have fun in the craft room. Take care. Bye.